Hello friends, welcome to my channel. This is Vikas here, and in today's session I will be demonstrating about a Kubernetes end-to-end project. So let me give you a quick overview of the KTS components what we are going to do now. So before that, I am considering that you all know, you are all aware of the deployment service config map and secrets of Kubernetes. So let's just go ahead and let's just see what is the overview. So here we are actually deploying two apps. So one is MongoDB and second is Mongo Express. So because this I have chosen because it will demonstrate well, and it will demonstrate a setup of web apps and its DB. Okay. So and it can be applied to any similar setup you do have. Okay. So first what we will do, first we will have a MongoDB pod, you can see here on the screen, and to access this pod we need a service. Okay, and we will do what, this is a DB, so we are not going to expose it outside of the world. So what we will do, we will create a internal service. So once we will create the internal service, then no external request will be allowed to this pod, and only component inside the cluster can access this. Okay, so going ahead, the third step is like we will have a Mongo Express deployment, and here we need a DB URL, right? You need a MongoDB URL so that you can access the DB from your this web app, right? So so the DB URL we need so that Mongo Express can connect to the MongoDB. Okay, and we need also the credential, that is the username and the DB password, right? So that we can authenticate to this database, right? And the way we will pass it, so we are not going to directly pass it, right? So in Kubernetes we do have this config map where we will pass the DB URL, and this we will use secret Kubernetes component so that we will pass the username and the password of MongoDB, so that through environment variable it will authenticate. Okay, so for that we will have config map and a secret, right? And I have told you, like in config map we will store the DB URL, that is MongoDB URL, and in secret we will define the username and the password. Okay, and we will reference these two component in the deployment.yaml file. Okay, so once the setup will be done, so we need to like MongoDB Express to be accessible through the web browser, right? In order to in order to achieve this MongoDB to be accessible outside of the world, so what we have to do, we have to create an external service, correct? So these are the components I have mentioned above: two deployment and two services and one config map and one secret. Okay, so let me just go ahead to the second part of this. So here I will be telling you about the request flow, how the request will flow throughout the project. Okay, so here when the request will come from the browser, that goes to the external service of the MongoDB Express, right? Here you are trying to access the DB, the MongoDB Express. So you will have a IP along with the service port which you are going to enable. So from the URL you are trying to access, so that will hit to the MongoDB external service. So once you will hit this external service, this will be forwarded to the MongoDB Express pod, Mongo Express pod, correct? So once you have redirected here, what you will do, pod will be here, your pod will be connected to the internal service of MongoDB, correct? So here we have used an internal server so that it will not be exposed outside of the world, so it will be accessible throughout the Kubernetes component inside a cluster, correct? So this internal service will be nothing but the DB URL, right? Okay, So it will do what? Once this will be done, then it will forward the MongoDB pod, correct? It will forward it to the MongoDB pod, and it will authenticate the request using the credential, correct? So once you have started, your traffic will be forwarded to the external service of MongoDB Express. Once you will hit this, it will forward you to the Mongo Express pod, correct? This is nothing but suppose think like it is a web app, right? So once you will hit this and you will try to do something, it will redirect you to the MongoDB external service, which is nothing but the DB URL of this MongoDB. And once you will hit this service, this external service, sorry, this will be internal service. So once you will hit this internal service, it will redirect you to the MongoDB pod, correct? So let's just go ahead and let's just start creating all the component. Here I will show you how to write these all files. Along with that, I will try to explain as well, and I will show you how to, for this project achievement, I have to configure a MiniKube cluster, right? So for that MiniKube cluster, you need to have at least a T2 mediums, correct? So you have to choose that, and for that I have already created a server. You can see MiniKube cluster. This is running with instance type of T2 medium, right? So let me just log in here and let me just show you the next step. Okay, so as I have already logged into my VM, so here for the time permits, I'm going to do what? I'm going to run a shell script here. Okay, so no need to worry, I will put this link into the description so that you can easily install this. So let me just create this shell script, and so let's wait until this is complete. Okay, so let me pause this video and come back to you when this is done. So I'm doing this so that you will have a understanding like what are the things I have done in the background. I will not directly go to the project, correct? So that's why I have done this. So here you can see our all component are coming up: kubelet, kubeadm, kubectl. So as I have shared, like for the MiniKube cluster, you need a minimum a 2 vCPU, right? So we have chosen that. So it is generating the certificates and key, and here you can see it is putting up the control plane. Once this is done, it is saying to run these two commands. Okay, okay, fine. So let's just go ahead and let's just see kubectl get all what are the components are there. So you can see by default I have a cluster IP of service Kubernetes. This is the name. So let's just go ahead and now let's start writing the manifest file for MongoDB and Mongo Express. Okay, so here I'm going to basically install some plugins so that I can easily write all the manifest. Okay, so let me just, so this is my MongoDB deployment here, and so this is the basic syntax of a deployment. So you can see here, this is the API version and this is a kind of deployment, correct? And here you can see I am using the metadata that is having the name of this deployment. So I have given this deployment as a MongoDB deployment here, and here I am using this label and the selector, right? So that it will, right, it will be applied to the particular resources. And here you can see I'm using replicas equals to 1, so that it will have it will run one replica each time. Once it is down, it will comes up, right? And here you can see in the container section spec I am using MongoDB here, and the name of the image is Mongo, right? So it's the same name. Make sure that you are using the same name here, and this is this Mongo, correct? So once you will go to the Docker Hub, and here you have this. So let's just see how we can use this image. So we do have this root username, and this is the root password we have to set to use this image. And Let me see which port we have to enable so that we can use this image. So this MongoDB port is 27017. So the same port you have to enable. So let's just go back to our manifest file, and here let's enable the port. Okay, and here you have to mention the container port, that is the same which we have seen right now, that is 27017, correct? Make sure you're writing the same. Okay, so what after this what we have to do, we have to pass the two environment variable which we have seen here, right? That is the root username and this password. So we are going to set this as a environment variable. So what is the command for that? That is env, correct? And make sure that this your okay, so here we have to write the name of the environment, that will be the same which you have seen. So let's just go ahead and let's just copy the same MongoDB root username. Okay, and here you have to mention from where you are providing the value. So that is value from, correct? And the same way you have to pass the password, right? So I'm using the same. I will go back and take this environment variable here. I will copy and I will go back and I will paste it here. Okay, so once this is done, this is error because we have to pass the secret, right? So here I will not directly pass the secret, correct? So what we have to do, we will create a secret component, correct? And we will assign that through the environment variable. So first, before that, we have to create a secret file, right? So this is the secret file I have created, MongoDB secret, and here I am going to type secret. So here you can see I have got this skeleton. So here we have to write we have to modify as per our request, as per our requirement. So here I am going to name this as a MongoDB secret, and here I don't want to use any namespace. So you know, right, what is namespace, as we have talked in our one of the session. So the type will be opaque, right? So this is the one, like it will hide your password, right? And here you can see this is the data where you will pass your password, correct? So here you will pass how you are going to pass the password and the username of the database, correct? So I'm going to use this naming convention, username, fine. And the same way you will pass the MongoDB okay, so password. So you're not going to directly define it here, correct? So how you will pass the password here, what you have to do, you just have to go to the server, and here let me see if it is up. Let me duplicate the session. Okay, correct. So here what you have to do, you have to convert your password, username and password into base 64, correct? So what you have to do, echo -n, and here you have to provide the username. Okay, in the same way we will have our password. So echo -n, and here in the single quotes you have to pass the password. Okay, and here what you have to do, you have to convert it into base 64, correct? Hit enter and get your password from here. and go back and paste it here. So YAML is very strict about its indentation, so make sure that you are writing it correct. So once this is done, we have to pass this root username and password into this MongoDB deployment, right? That's why we have left spaces here, correct? So what you have to do, as we have discussed in our this overview, like here we will pass these all things as an environment variable, correct? So we will do what, before deployment we have to run this secret, right? So that it will set to the environment variable so that we can use it here, right? So let's just go ahead and let's just run this secret. So let me go to the, okay, and here let me create a folder, project folder, and here I will keep all my files, correct? So I'm inside this. So here I'm going to create secret.yaml, and here you have to provide the contents. Okay, so once this is done, save and quit. And here let's see, the file is here. So let me just create the secret. So what is the command? kubectl apply -f and the secret, hit enter. So once you have done, you can see secret has been created. So kubectl, so you can see MongoDB secret has been created, right? kubectl secret, and let's just see this secret. Once you will hit enter, so you can see, right, this, that's why we have set the type as opaque. If you will not set this, so you will have your password clearly visible here, so that is not a best practice, right? So that's why only we have set this type as opaque, and here you can see instead of a content you are having this 8 byte, right? So this is done. So now let's just go ahead and in the deployment, now we have to set those all things as a variable. Fine. So here what we have to do now, so here we have to refer, right? So let me type this. So we are referring to the secret key, correct? And here we have to provide, so the value secret from, and here I'm going to provide the name. So what is the name? So the name will be your this MongoDB secret, and from the secret you will pass the key, correct, instead of the value. So this is the name, and what is the key here? So the key is this. First we are passing this root username. So this is the key. Fine. And the same way you will do this also, secret key reference. So make sure you are giving some spaces here. Okay, okay, so that's why indentation is very important. So once this is done, so we are ready, right? So we are ready with the deployment. So that this is MongoDB deployment. So we are ready with the username, we are ready with the this pass username and the password, right? So once this is done, so let's just go ahead and let's just run this deployment as well. So I'm copying this, I'm going back to my, here I will do what, I will create one more file here. Okay, nano, and here I have pasted that. Make sure that indentation is correct, otherwise it will create a big mesh. Okay, Fine. So now let's just go ahead and let's just run this kubectl apply -f, and what is the file name? mongodb.yaml. Just hit enter. So you can see some error we have got here. Okay, let me go inside the file and indent it properly. So here there should be one more space. Correct. So now save it and let's try to run this again. Okay, unknown field name. So this comes under secret key reference. Okay, so that was not properly intended. Okay, now I think it should work. Okay, so you can see deployment has been created. So let's just go ahead and let's just see kubectl get deployments. Okay, so this started running, so it will take time to come up. So now it is ready, correct? So let's see the description once. kubectl describe deployment, and here you have to provide the name of the deployment. Once you will hit enter, you can see right in this deployment section we have imported the MongoDB internal root name, and this is the password, correct? So now this is done. So to access this DB we need an internal service, correct? So let me just give you a quick walkthrough. So to access this DB we need an internal service, right? So that component inside the cluster can access this, not the external. Okay, so it should not get the external traffic. So instead of creating one more secret file in YAML only, I will divide this and I will write here the service part. So once service, you will write create a service, hit enter, you will get the demo chart. Fine. So here you have to provide some value. So I will remove some of those things that is not of my use. Namespaces I don't need, and the specification I need. Here we have to pass the selector, right? So that it will be allowed to the particular resource, right? And these all things are not required, and here the port section is required, right? Okay, so let me delete this. Okay, so here this is the service, and here you have to provide the name of the service. Okay, so what? MongoDB. Make sure you are using the same name. Okay, same prefix, so that it will be easy to access. Okay, so here in the selector section what we have to write? MongoDB, right? So why we are using this, you can see in the up only. In the label and selector we have given the same, right? MongoDB, correct? So that's why I'm using the same here. And here in the type, so by default it will be cluster type only, so no need to mention. And here this is the important thing. So which protocol you want to enable, that you have to provide here, that is TCP itself, right? So instead of a name, I don't need this name here. After port, that's the protocol, and here we have to mention the port, right? So this service will act upon which port? This is this port, right? So I have taken this, and I have to mention the target port as well, correct? This also I am enabling the same. So once the traffic will hit this port, okay, the traffic will be redirected to the target port of this port of the container. So we have done the mapping. So once this is done, we have to apply the same here. Okay, so I will do what I will just edit the same MongoDB deployments, and in the down, let's go ahead and let's just paste this. Okay, save it. It stopped responding. Give me a few seconds. Once this is done, let's just apply again. MongoDB.yaml. So the service has been created. So now you will do kubectl get service. You can see this MongoDB service has been assigned by default as clustered IP, and this is the clustered IP, right? And you can see here the port, correct? So whatever the traffic will come to this port, it will get redirected to the this targeted port, right? So the target port on this port is same. Okay, so once this is done, so now what are the things we have achieved? We have created the MongoDB. Okay, and in the MongoDB we have created a secret, right? In the secret we have given the username and the password of this MongoDB, correct? And before running the deployment, we have ran the secret, and we have took the environment variable of the secret, which was containing username and password of the DB, that we have assigned to this deployment. So once we have set this to the deployment, we have ran the deployment, correct? So now we have ran the two services. So once this is done, now we have to access this MongoDB, right? Internally, correct? So what we have done, we have created a service with this target port, this clustered IP, fine, and we have ran the same script again. So now our task is to create this MongoDB Express, right? So that we can access this MongoDB services. Okay. So let's just go ahead and let's create Mongo Express manifest file. Okay, so let's just paste this. So this is a simple deployment file of Mongo Express. So you can see here I am using the label and the selector, and I am running one replica of this. So see, your database is complete. Now you're working on your web app. Think like that, fine. So here you can see this label and selector is same, correct? And here you can see I'm using this Mongo Express. So let's just go back and let's see how we can use the Mongo Express here. So this is our front end. Okay, so this is Mongo Express. So let me scroll down, and here you can see it is using port 8081. Keep in mind this port. Okay, and here what we need, this MongoDB admin username and this MongoDB admin password. Okay, so port is 8081 and this two variable we need. Okay, so let me go to the manifest file, and here first thing what you have to do, you have to enable the port, right? So this is the port and this is the container port, and what is the port number? 8081, fine. So once this is done, you need environment variables. Fine. Why do you need environment variable? So you know, right, as we have seen in this image, we need these two things to access, so username and password, right? So that you will send this username and password and it will get authenticated, correct, your database. Fine. So these things you have to set. So just copy this, go back, and in the environment section, this is the name, and here paste the same. Fine. And here in the same way, what you have to do, make sure you are writing the proper indentation values from. Okay, so we will come here, let's define all the other environment variable as well. So this is the second one. So these are the names. So here what we have to do, we have to pass these all values from this secrets, right? The same value we will use here as well. So let me go back to the MongoDB secrets, not here, this, we do know these things. So we are passing this value as an environment variable. Fine. The same you need here as well. Just make sure indentation is proper. So once this is done, okay, so this is the environment variable we took from the Docker, like how we can use this image, and along with that we are authenticating the database from the front end, right? So we have passed the same secret and the same this. Now the third thing here, see, we have to access the database, right? So we need the database URL, correct? So as we have discussed, we are not going to write the DB URL directly. So how we will pass the DB URL? Using config map, as we have discussed in the overview, correct? So we have to create a config map and there we will define the DB URL. Okay, so let's see, do we have the section for this? MongoDB server. So here you can see this is the one, correct? Config MongoDB server, and here we have to define the DB URL. So just take this environment variable, again go back, and here again you have to create again the name. So this is the one which is the connection between your web app and your database. Fine. So here also you have to write a value from. So okay, so this is done. Now before passing here, so what we have to do, we have to run the config map with the environment variable so that we can access here, right? The same way we have done for the secret, we ran the secret and we are using the environment variables here. So let me go ahead and let me create a config map. Okay, so here I will write mongo express config map.yaml. Fine. And here we have to write, so let me type config map, hit enter, and these are the fields you have to fill. Okay, so what is the name of the config map you want to set? So again I'm using the same naming convention, right? So MongoDB hyphen So this is the config map name I will use, and here we have to provide the data. So I am not going to run this in any namespace. I need in default namespace, right? So this is the key value. So instead of key, what I will do, I will change this as a database, correct? And here I will pass the database. So do you remember what is the bridge between this app and the database? So let's go back here. So what is the I have told you here itself, right? So the pod will be connected to the internal service of MongoDB. This pod, this Mongo Express pod will be connected to the this MongoDB server with the internal address, internal service. Okay, so which was nothing but a mongo this db url. Fine. So what we have to do, we have to map the service of this MongoDB with the Mongo Express, correct? Mongo Express in the instead of the database URL, we are mapping the service of this MongoDB, correct? So that it will access it, correct? So let's go back, and here what you have to provide, the name of the MongoDB service you have created. So what is the service name here? So this is the name of the service, right? So this one will be get mapped with the config map. Fine. So this is the database URL. So hope you are understanding the scenario. So see here, this is the Mongo Express, okay, and this is the Mongo Express which is accessing the MongoDB using MongoDB internal service. Fine. So internal services are basically what, that firstly we will expose the port, that is 8081, that is fine. Along with that, what values we are passing, the database username, database password, so that it will authenticate. Fine. But what is the main connection? That is database URL, right? So how the database URL will function here? See, you will do what, you will pass the service, you will pass the MongoDB service as a URL of this URL, as a database URL. So that's what I am doing. So I will go to this MongoDB. Fine. I am using this MongoDB service as the database URL here. Fine. So now what we have to do, we have to run this config map first, then only we will be able to access this as an environment variable. So let's go back. Okay, let's create a config map here. So this is the content I have copied, and let's apply this kubectl apply -f config map.yaml. okay, so here I got some issue, so let me edit this again. Mongo Express config map, and here what issue is there, name is fine. MongoDB config map. Okay, so this name should be a smaller case, right? So okay, so I'm giving this name. Okay, smaller case, fine. Let's run this again. Okay, so you can see config map has been created. So now let's check kubectl get configs, I think. So you can see, right, this is the config map we have created. So let's see the description of this kubectl describe config map and the name of the config map so that we can see the content of this. This is not a type of secret, right? So in the database URL you can see we have passed the MongoDB service. Fine. So this is done. So once this is done, what you have to do, you have to go back to your Mongo Express file, which is this, and here you have to map the DB URL, right? So this time you are not using a secret, right? So now what you have to do, you have to do the changes. So what you have to do, you have to pass the config map key reference now. So you can see it is giving me what is the name and the key you have to pass here. So what is the name of the config map? The name of the config map is this. So this is in smaller case, right? So let me edit in the same way. Let me save, take this name, go back and pass it here. Fine. And what is the key value so that it can access? So key is nothing but the database URL. Okay, fine. So once this is done, we are ready with the deployment of our the setup. Now let's copy these all contents from here and let's go back to our server project, and here you have to create the express, right? So I'm going to create Mongo. Naming convention is very important, right? If you are working in a organization, if you are doing this for a learning, then that is fine, but make sure you are doing it properly. Okay, so let's see the content once again so that we can see the proper indentation part. Seems fine only. Let's run this kubectl apply -f mongo express.yaml. Okay, so value from, so this is the mistake I have done. Let me go back to the Mongo Express file. Where is, okay, value from, now apply. So you can see Mongo Express deployment has been created. So once you will do kubectl get all, so see here you have this two deployment, right? When you have Mongo Express and the second one is MongoDB, that is your backend, and this is your front end. Fine. And here you can see this service is running, correct? This is the service for your this database, right? That is the internal service. So you can see it is using clustered IP so that it will be accessible inside the cluster itself, right? And here you can see we have two deployments here. So these are the pods, and here we are getting the deployments. So these are the two deployments we have created, and here you can see the replica set, right? So we have created one replica for the Mongo Express, which is front end, and one replica for the MongoDB deployment, that is the backend, that is the database, right? So now what is left? Tell me. The only one thing is left, right? That is the service, right? So we need to expose this front end, right? So that we can access it through browser. Fine. And the browser will interact with this. So we have to enable a service for that, correct? So let me go ahead and let me create service. So just type service, hit enter. So you will get something like this. And here again, we do not need many things. So let me clear. So I'm going to, either you can write in the default only, or this is fine. And here you have to provide the name and all. So let's go MongoDB, and we are following some naming convention. Fine. MongoDB Express service, and here in the selector, what you have to do, you have to see this services will be applied to which deployment, which this, right? So that you are using this label and selector. Fine. So this is my label. I will copy this, and in this selector part I will paste the same. Fine. And here you can see it is using a clustered IP. So it is actually, it is a what it is a it will be publicly accessed, right? So what we will do, we will make it as a load balancer. So this is a type of load balancer, and here in the protocol, I don't need any name here. Again, I will pass the protocol here. Fine. And which port the request should forward. This port the request should forward, right? So just take it. Fine. And what is the target port? It should go to the same port, this traffic, right? Once the traffic will hit to this port, it should be redirected to the this port of the port. Fine. And once this is done, I'm going to assign it a node port. Any port you can give from 30,000 to 32,600 something. So I'm taking it as a 30,000 itself, the starting. Once this is done, let's run this service into the existing deployment. Okay, so I'm going to do Mongo Express, Mongo, and here. So Kubernetes know, right, what thing we have to update. It's not like it will try to recreate this all thing. Kubernetes knows his state, right? So it will just try to create the things which is required. Okay, so once this is done, let me save it and let me rerun the same. kubectl apply mongo express.yml. So you can see deployment is unchanged because Kubernetes already know that, and you can see the service has been created. Fine. So let's see kubectl get svc. Okay, kubectl. So you can see the Mongo Express service we have exposed outside of the cluster, and here it is a load balancer type. Fine. And here it is mapped to 3000 port, right? So here what we have to do, let me just start the service, that is Minikube service. And which service we are going to start? This Mongo Express service, right? Just hit enter and see, you will get something like this. So it will try to open it into the default browser, or either you can directly access this. So let's see what is the IP, we have. So this is the IP we have, along with that 30,000 port we have to access, right? So once this is up, so you can directly do anything, like if you want to create any database. So this is your front end. So once you will click on database, so you can see it is creating the test database. So you know, right, what is the overall thing it is happening in the backend. Let me give you a quick walkthrough again. So what you have done, you have took the IP and you have took the IP of the MongoDB along with the service port which you have, node port you have enabled, right? So you can see that is 3000. This is the IP of your service, this is the IP of your Mongo Express, and this is the IP of your service port, right, which you have enabled 30,000 to the Mongo Express in the code. So let's go to the code, and this is your Mongo Express one. Fine. And here you can see you have enabled the node port 30,000. Fine. So once you have done that and you have hit enter to the URL, so it went to the Mongo Express external service. Fine. So this is this external service is nothing but a node port 3000. So it hit here. Once it hit to the service, external service, the traffic has been forwarded to the Mongo Express. Fine. That's why you would be able to see this dashboard. Fine. And once this is done, so you have tried to create something that, like the test database I have shown you, right? So this one we have created right now, this test. So once you have tried to do something like this, so it will do what? It will try to send the traffic, MongoDB traffic, to the internal service. Fine. So database will be your internal service, where it has redirected the traffic. So, and it has done what? We are using the service as the DB URL. Fine, we have DB URL. Along with that, we have sent the username and password, so that it will authenticate to the database, and it will uh, it has fetched the data here, right? Test from the database, and which is available here. So like this, we have seen a simple scenario of this Mongo Express and MongoDB app deployment. So this is like a web server and a database server. Okay, so the same way you can do what? You will have your own setup, where you can apply this, and you can see, so, like, it can be applied to any similar setup you have. So this is what I mean. So thanks for watching. Please tr- try to drop a like and consider subscribing if you are getting if you are learning new things from me, so that it will help me to motivate myself, so that I do these things for you. So I have just created a new channel, so I need your little support. Okay, so if you're facing any difficulty, please write in the description, sorry, in the comment, so that I can be able to help you. And I will put all the links, so whatever is necessary to achieve these all things, in the description. Okay, so from there you can fork it and you can use it, you can take help. Okay, and please try to write it by yourself only, so that you will have a full understanding. Okay, so thanks for watching. Do like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you.